Hello, property navigators. Today we're diving deep into how major events like the Olympics can reshape and rebuild cities and the effects that this has on the property markets in these cities. We'll take a look at Sydney 2000 Olympics and the transformative infrastructure projects that emerged from it. Then we'll use this historical insight to explore what might happen to Brisbane as it gears up to host the Olympics in 2032. If you're interested in property investment and urban development, stay tuned. The Olympics are more than just a global sporting event. They're a catalyst for urban transformation. Host cities invest heavily in infrastructure aiming to accommodate the influx of visitors and athletes and to showcase their city on the world stage. These investments often include projects such as new sports venues, transportation systems, housing projects, and public amenities. But before we get started, let me be clear. A major sporting event such as the Olympics is not a property market growth driver in itself. Experts like John and Margaret Gold, authors of Olympic Cities, Agendas, Planning and the World Games 1896 to 2020, highlight how these mega events drive rejuvenation and redevelopment strategies that reshape urban landscapes for decades. While the immediate focus is on the event itself, the long-term impacts on urban development and ultimately the property markets can be profound. The direct benefit to property markets from hosting such big international events come from the bringing forward of investment in big ticket infrastructure. So ultimately, major events are utilised as a strategy to drive investment to produce growth and rejuvenation. Then layered on top of this, there are additional major economic benefits from job creation, tourism and extra trade opportunities, which I'll explain in more detail shortly. Historically, cities that have hosted the Olympics have seen varying degrees of transformation. The scale and success of these changes depend on factors like the city's pre-existing infrastructure, economic conditions, and strategic planning. To explain this, firstly, let's delve into a case study I've created on the Sydney 2000 Olympics. Before the 2000 Olympics, Sydney was already a vibrant cosmopolitan city. However, it faced challenges like traffic congestion, inadequate public transport, and limited large-scale event venues. The bid for the Olympics presented an opportunity to address these issues and propel Sydney onto the world stage.
The winner is Sydney.
One of the most significant legacies of the 2000 Olympics in Sydney is Sydney's Olympic Park. Located in the western suburb of Homebush Bay, this area was transformed from an industrial wasteland into a world-class sports and entertainment precinct. The development included the construction of major venues like Stadium Australia, the Sydney Showground and the Aquatic Centre. To think that these projects would have been strategised and implemented with the urgency that they were, if not for the Olympics, is probably ludicrous. PRD Research analysed the impact of the Sydney Olympics, one of the largest sporting events ever hosted in Australia, and their chief economist, Dr. Diaswati Matamismo, said it required one of the largest recreational, cultural and residential developments in Sydney's history, with the total cost estimated at $6.6 billion. Since then, the Olympic Park has undergone over $2.7 billion worth of development to continue the success of the area. The Athletes Village was built to house athletes during the Games, and this was later converted into residential housing. The athletes' accommodation was reconfigured to offer 900 townhouses and 700 apartments. This development provided a significant boost to the local housing market, offering modern, high-quality homes in a well-planned community. As per PRD Research, Newington and surrounding suburbs' sales activity rose by 58% between 2000 and 2001, the year after the Olympics, and median house prices grew by 13.4% in the same period. PRD Research go on to note that the median house price growth continued, with prices rising a further 38.5% in the 2 years after and 66.4% in the next 3 years. To support the influx of visitors, Sydney also invested heavily in its transportation infrastructure with key projects which included the Olympic Park rail station upgrade, upgrades to roads and highways such as the M4 motorway and the extension to the light rail system, among a ton of additional infrastructure spend. Bernard Salt, a leading demographer and social commentator, noted that the Olympics helped to reposition Sydney as a global city, which in turn attracted international investors and boosted property values. The chart on screen highlights differences between Sydney's house prices and Australia's surrounding the 2000 Olympic Games. Sydney's median house price is shown to have increased by 53% across the relevant time frame. Notably, growth in Sydney's median house price clearly outpaced the national trend. trend, 30%. As I mentioned, the areas around the Olympic Park saw even higher increases driven by improved amenities and transportation links. The legacy of the Olympics continued to influence Sydney's long-term urban development long after the Games. The Olympic Park area evolved into a major commercial and residential hub, attracting businesses, residents and tourists. The city's overall appeal as a place to live, work and invest was also significantly enhanced. For example, the instatement of the Sydney Olympic Park Authority in 2001 ensured that the area remained a focal point for urban planning and development, hosting over 5,000 events annually and contributing billions to the local economy. All of this from a huge sporting event. Pretty amazing, huh? While the Olympics provide a clear example of how major events can drive urban transformation in turn, affecting property markets, other events have had similar impacts that are more specific to Brisbane. Most notably, Brisbane previously has hosted the World Expo in 1988 and G20 Summit in 2014. Expo 88 is a prime example. The site of the 6-month-long World Expo 88 was transformed into what is now known as the South Bank Parklands, a vibrant public space that includes parks, restaurants, cultural institutions and residential areas, making it one of the most well-known and visited parts of the city. PRD research compared the median house price for the 11 years prior to Expo 88 and the G20 Summit, and that's how far away the 2032 Olympics were when the research was published, and found Brisbane LGA's recorded median house price growth of 278.8% in that period. During this time frame, median house prices in South Bank, where the Expo was held, and its surrounding suburbs grew by an average of 335%. For the G20 meanwhile, Brisbane LGA median house prices grew by 112% from 2003 to 2015. That is both in the short term of 1 year after the event and the long term throughout the 12 years time frame of preparation, hosting and post-event. Dr. Madiasmos said, "It is clear from the above key findings that hosting both Expo 88 and G20 Summit has served the Brisbane property market well." Those who have been following Brisbane's growth and development will know that Brisbane has long since shed its old image of being a big country town. Prime Minister Scott Morrison said after the announcement was made, "Only global cities can secure the Olympics." So this is fitting recognition for Brisbane's standing across our region and the world. We know the impact on Sydney more than 2 decades ago was transformative. We can now expect a repeat for Brisbane and communities across Queensland. In the last 2 decades, the Queensland government has been investing heavily in developing Brisbane's infrastructure. Unlike Sydney, where the population growth came first and the infrastructure played catch-up, Brisbane has been planning strategically over the last 2 decades, with even more infrastructure and development fast-tracked to meet the 2032 deadline. Brisbane is poised for significant transformation in the lead up to the Games, and as Daniel Gashwind of Queensland Tourism and Industry Council said recently, we are not just building something for a 3-week sports party, but we are building a new city. When money is spent in a city, what usually follows is more jobs, more people, more housing demand, and property growth. The 2023 QMCC report outlines that the Venues Infrastructure Program is jointly funded by the state and federal government. A total capital expenditure of $7.1 billion has been announced within the recent budget, which comprises $2.5 billion for the Brisbane Arena, $50 million for an international broadcasting centre, which is a new precinct on a major 7-hectare site on Montague Road in South Brisbane, and a $300 million Brisbane Indoor Sports Centre, a new high-performance indoor community sports facility, and $1.9 billion for other venues. For now, CSQ estimates the Olympic and Paralympic Games will account for about an 8% share of new construction activity over the years to 2032. But most importantly here, I am going to talk about the Brisbane Olympic and Paralympic Athletes Village. $1.4 billion has been committed for a 10,000-bed village that will be constructed in the Economic Development Queensland-owned land within the North Shore Hamilton Priority Development Area to accommodate athletes and visitors. Now, while North Shore Hamilton has slowly gentrified over the years, similar to Sydney's Athletes Village, much of it is still reminiscent of Homebush Bay, being that it is industrial and underutilised. So this will be very good for the area and Brisbane in general. And again, it will be converted into residential residential housing post-games, providing a boost to the local property market. I can't wait to see more on the planning for this. A report by BIS Oxford Economics suggests that the Olympics could add billions to Brisbane's property market over the next decade. An expert insight by urban planner and economist Professor Ed Blakely points out that the Olympics will act as a catalyst for Brisbane to accelerate its urban development plans, leading to a more connected and vibrant city. Based on the Sydney 2000 experience, we probably can expect significant property market growth in Brisbane. Improved infrastructure, increased global exposure, and enhanced urban amenities should drive demand in areas near major Olympic venues, and transport hubs will likely see the highest growth. PRD's research shows that when applying the same level of growth seen in the 11 years before and after the 2014 G20 summit, PRD found Brisbane's median house price could grow to $1.7 million by 2033. Even Ipswich could be a $1 million median price city by then, thanks to the glut of infrastructure planned in support of the Olympic bid. There is a potential that Brisbane's median house price will not travel as far as the G20 growth. That said, even if we go at half strength, metaphorically speaking, 56%, which is 112 divided by 2, that would still take us to a $1.2 million house price by 2033, Dr. Madiasmo said. As seen in previous international events, there is a multiplier effect on the property prices in surrounding suburbs. Bearing in mind Olympics 2032 is still 8 years away, and based on how the property market is travelling, the potential to eclipse this price point is high. Regardless of the calculation method, the conclusion points us to Brisbane becoming a $1 million median house price city sooner rather than later. Similar research from CoreLogic agreed with PRD's assessment, saying the most significant positive influence on the housing market is likely to be seen in the years leading up to the Olympics. Large infrastructure projects tend to have a very positive influence on housing prices, with the extra requirement for workers creating additional demand for housing during the construction process, CoreLogic Research Director Tim Lawless said. As Brisbane prepares for the 2032 Olympics, the city is poised for significant change. Whilst it's impossible to tell what property prices will be in 8 years' time, the lead up to the Olympics could make a $1 million property market in Brisbane a real possibility, but it just won't be the only reason why. With that being said, I'd also like to point out here that the insights and data analysis I've pointed out today belong to the respectful experts, and we want you to remember that a multitude of factors pertain to the growth of markets, so do your own research. Thank you for joining us today. We love making these videos and growing our YouTube community. If you found this video insightful, please like, share and subscribe for more in-depth analysis and property market updates. Until next time, happy property navigating.